Welcome to Your Transformations. Today we're honored to have with us our guest, Catherine Allard. It's an honor to have you here, Kathy. Your memoir, Becoming Comfortably Numb, is not only a testament to resilience, but also a deeply human invitation to rethink how we relate to healing, identity, and the brain's quiet miracles. I'm grateful for this chance to explore your journey with you today. So welcome, Kathy.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Kathy, your story kind of begins at the moment of some real profound change. Just as I understand it, just 3 months into motherhood, you had your first stroke. Can you take us back to that time and share what life felt like maybe before and immediately after this turning point?
Sure. I was 27 and a type A career girl. I was working in a highly stressful communications job. I loved it, but it was busy. And while I was on maternity leave, I had quite a severe stroke when my daughter was just barely 3 months old. Of course, that threw our whole family's life into chaos. My husband had to become Mr. Mom, and I'm grateful that a week before it happened, I showed him how to do bottles and run the washing machine. And we were also very lucky to find a caregiver for our daughter, because 3 months old was kind of the minimum, like that babies had to be at least 3 months old. So even though from the start there was horrendous difficulty, I was grateful for a lot of things. I had to spend 3 months in stroke rehab rehabilitation. The stroke affected my right side, which usually speech is involved, but I was very lucky that it didn't affect my speech. However, the thalamus, the part of the brain that controls your sight, your hearing, your taste, your sense of smell, and your sensations, affected me quite profoundly. I was totally numb on this side, and I still am, with constant burning that never goes away, and I can't tell what I'm touching unless I look at it. So that required a great deal of shifting in terms of getting used to my new body. And I'm still getting used to my new body 40 years later. But, it was difficult because at first I couldn't even hold my daughter. I had to be put on anxiety medication so that I could focus on my physiotherapy. And then when I got out of hospital, the rehab didn't stop there, of course. And it still goes on today, even after my second stroke. There were many tough years. I'll tell you about my second stroke too, because it further identifies how difficult the transformation was. After the second stroke, it was right side again. I did have a bit of aphasia, the difficulty to speak, for only a week, but I needed to wear a brace on my leg for 12 years, which was exceedingly painful. But then 12 years later, I had my foot reconstructed. I never thought that was going to happen, and I got rid of the brace. And then I rediscovered the joy of walking. And everything is today's walk, even if I don't walk. It's just so great to be able to walk and talk. And I am so grateful that I had the medical care I needed. I'm a grandma now. That is unbelievable because I got to hold my granddaughter during the period where I wasn't able to hold my own daughter. You cannot imagine the joy that brought me. So my transformation is, sure, I was hit pretty hard a couple of times, but I had the support and the determination, and I still do, to keep enjoying life because there is life after stroke.
Goodness, and thank you for this. You talk about identity some. So if we could go back to the first stroke, can you describe the moment you realized your identity would be forever changed?
It was the night I had the stroke. I knew my life would never be the same. It took a week to diagnose, but I knew that I would never be able to work in a high pressure job anymore. Because when you're in chronic pain like that all the time, you don't have the bandwidth to think beyond fight or flight. It's all about how can I breathe? I had trouble to breathe because I was in so much pain. So my life went from A to Z with nothing in between. And when I had the first stroke, I thought my life was over. And, I was full of anxiety, depression, anger. It was very hard to think about anything, about the possibility of being able to do anything else when you're in that situation. I hope that answers your question.
Oh my, yes. And going back to that approximate time in your life, for the first few years, how would you say motherhood shaped your response to this traumatic event?
Well, it was very traumatic because even when I got out of the hospital, I wasn't able to care for my daughter 24/7. She still had to go and be taken to daycare twice a week so that I could focus on rehabilitating myself. I couldn't take care of my daughter before I was able to take care of myself. I didn't want to drop her. There was so many things that were difficult for me to do, just to learn how to prepare food and feed myself. So that was very hard. I felt like a failure as a mother. I mean, it's hard enough for a first-time mom with this little bundle of joy, and we didn't have a big family. We didn't have a lot of relatives to help out. So it was extremely difficult. And that just made me feel as if my life was over. I couldn't think past that. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, you're doing incredible, and I thank you for opening up and sharing all this with us. I guess going back to identity, I remembered. I think you used the term differently identified, and could you explain to everyone what that means to you now?
Yeah, that you're differently abled? Is that what you're talking about? Yeah. We often talk about people with disabilities as the disabled. And that, in a lot of people's opinion, is derogatory. If you say you're differently abled, I think that it implies that you can still do what others do. You just do it in a different way. I mean, if you're in a wheelchair, you can still do amazing things. Look at Stephen Hawking. He was an astrophysicist, and he had to talk with a machine, but he was a genius. So that's being differently able.
Okay, I like that for sure. I guess I'll do a disclaimer. Neither Kathy nor myself are medical doctors, and anything we'll talk about is certainly not medical advice. But something you discuss that I just think in your book, and I think you call it by a few different names, is the concept of neuroplasticity. So, and that's just beyond a hopeful concept. So could you explain your understanding of what neuroplasticity is?
Yes. Neuroplasticity is the brain's ability to find new pathways to do the same thing in a different way. And it's kind of hard to explain, but it's like if you repeat the impossible enough times, you create the possible. That's something Herman Hesse once said. But it's very true. They used to think that, only children had neuroplasticity, and they used to think that after stroke, when I had my first stroke, I was told, work your butt off, because after 2 years, that's it. But that's not true. For all of us, if our mind tells our brain to do something, we can create a neuroplastic, I don't know how to pronounce it, environment where you can teach yourself. Sometimes, it's all relative in terms of what your disabilities are or what your life situation is. Like, there's so many things that can affect it, including good nutrition. If you're not eating the right food, that's not good for your brain. So, your brain is something that you have to take care of. And I find that even 40 years later, I'm still learning how to do things differently. As I was talking to you before, Rich, when I had my first stroke, they would put my hand in a paper bag and say, pull out the watch. And I just put it in, and it was a massive stinging. It was impossible. Now, if by chance I've mistakenly put my keys in my right pocket, I can reach in and feel the big spike of the car key pressing into my hand, and I say, okay, it's the keys, and I grab it. I couldn't do that 40 years ago. Now, that doesn't seem like much, but it's little things. Like I garden with the bench so that I don't fall. You have to encourage yourself within your limits, but keep challenging yourself. And that includes anything, like for studying, how you do your job, that's how I look at neuroplasticity.
Okay, thank you. And I think another phrase you would use for it in your book is brain mending. And I'm interested to know, were you first aware of the concept of, as you understand it, of neuroplasticity? Were you first aware of it, or through the experiential of life, did you feel the effects of it first, then learn of the concept?
Certainly after, I had no concept of neuroplasticity before my first stroke. I didn't even know what the word really was until it became sexy in the media, and that was probably in the 1990s, in the aughts maybe. But I knew that the idea that our brains are always trying to heal themselves. Just from having my stroke, and with physiotherapy and occupational therapy, I was always trying to mend my brain. That's why I called it brain mending instead of neuroplasticity, because back when I had my first stroke, that term did not exist. It's just like with my affected right side, they call this a lack of proprioception, which a lot of medical people refer to proprioception as the sixth sense. And I didn't find that out until reading a zoology book, and she was talking about it. And, so that's where you have to keep learning on your own. I learned that from books, and no doctor actually used that word with me.
Okay. You touched upon this a few moments ago, but what were some of the most surprising ways your brain adapted or grew?
I think it was with swimming. I had never been a good swimmer, and after my second stroke, I used to do and I still do my own aquafit, which is so important for neuroplasticity. And it's a great way to exercise if you have disabilities. But after my second stroke, I would be in the water and my left side would always make me tip because my right side was not as heavy. But now I can do the front crawl because I've gone in the water every day and I've worked on it. And that is such an amazing feeling to be able to swim again. Like, you have no idea. And when you do achieve something like that, it's like, it's synergistic, because swimming is a full body experience. And for me, it's all about balance. I guess, and also yoga. When I first started doing yoga, I soon realized that I had to develop my own yoga practice at home because I didn't have the energy to go out to a class. Because by the time I got in the car with my left foot gas pedal, that's another thing. I had to become left-handed and left-footed. I'd be exhausted, right? So I figured, okay, I got to set up a yoga practice at home. And at first I felt stupid, doing these poses in front of my husband. And it took me a long time to say, Kathy, you've got to nurture yourself. This is what you need, so just do it. But, because I know a lot of people, when they want to start something, they're afraid because they're afraid what other people are going to think. Oh, I look stupid. Or, that took me a lot of time to get over that. But now it's like I'm free as a bird. I'll do what I want and I don't care what anybody else thinks. If it's good for me, I'm going to do it.
Well, yeah, I'm sitting here celebrating you right now. So, with what you just said, how would you say your sense of Kathy, your sense of self evolved over the 2 strokes?
Well, I think I feel very powerful right now because of what I've achieved, and I want to share that power with women, particularly because of women's increased risk for stroke and unique symptoms. And at least in Canada, 89% of women do not know about these unique risks that have been identified because women were not, medical studies were not done exclusively on women until 2023, if you can believe it. I had my first stroke in 1984. Now, I'm not going to get into why that happened, but obviously, there's a lot of work to be done about women and cardiovascular diseases, and I want to empower women to learn more about that. And the best way to do it is to go to the government site and read about stroke research. Now I'm getting off topic. I don't even remember what it was you asked me. I feel about myself. Yeah.
Your sense of yourself, and we are going to go back to what you were talking about. But yeah, yes. How did your sense of self evolve over the 2 strokes?
I feel very, very blessed because I had the support I needed to build a new life for myself, and I feel very grateful for that because many people in my situation do not have that luxury. And I feel very content. I feel also too, by sharing my experiences, I feel that it's all been worth it. Because it has been a long struggle. And there's a lot of things I don't like about myself either. I tend to be egotistical. But the thing is, in my situation, I've had to be, because if I didn't get better, I couldn't take care of anybody else. So I had to get better first. No, my sense of self is, and also another wonderful thing was that after my second stroke, I finally was able to reboot my communications career, and I had 12 years of wonderful work at the Department of Justice, Canada's Department of Justice, and I was even on the Deputy Minister's Advisory Committee for Persons with Disabilities, and I really felt like I contributed. It was my way of giving back, and that's how I feel like I'm giving back And it's a wonderful feeling. I have a purpose, and just honoring that purpose for the rest of my life will be fulfilling for me. So yeah, I'm in a really good place.
Well, very nice. And we are going to get back to the subject of good advice and guidance for women being aware of what all signs can lead up to a stroke. But you mentioned your profession. So how did your professional community respond to you and your journey throughout the years?
It didn't start off very well. In 1984, I went from disability to long-term disability, and they abolished my job while I was on disability. I could have taken them to court, and I would have won, but I chose not to because I had to focus on the positive. I was still in intense rehab mode, and any kind of negativity would have just dragged me down. But it was funny because I was able to get myself another job, and they called my former employer to verify my salary, and the other employer offered me my job back the next day because they knew they were in trouble. Then on another occasion, when I had a really, really good job, but it was 5 days a week, and I couldn't manage that because of my energy. At that time, flexible work options were not available, but they said, okay, if you want to still work for us, you can go freelance and write on contract. So I did that, and that was fine until I had my second stroke. Then after my second stroke, I thought I would never work again because I was really in a bad place. But 12 years later, I started, when I was wearing the leg brace after the second stroke, they gave me Botox injections in my ankle to reduce high spasticity. And that reduced the pain enough for me to say, okay, maybe I can think about doing other things than just daily activities of living. So I got a job at the Department of Justice. They said, if you work a 5-day week for 3 months, we'll take you on 4 days a week. And at that time I was editor of a newsletter, and that was a thrill for me. And I did that for 12 years, and I even got promoted to my level of incompetence. I'm just kidding. But no, I ended up being promoted to a senior internal communications advisor for the Deputy Minister's office, which was a thrill. My office was across from the Supreme Court of Canada, and it was just like, I couldn't believe I had achieved that. So even when I realized, like at 50, it was like I hit a brick wall. I couldn't cope with working and maintaining myself to, have all my faculties. But they were so supportive when I went on disability. I was one of the first people that had an intranet installation in my office so that I could work from home. And they had me do a project where I was writing content for a new part of their website. I wasn't working very much, but finally at one point, the insurer contacted me and said, okay, Kathy, it's obvious that you're really struggling, so we're going to let you pack it in and retire due to disability. And so at least I had a pension. So I'm so grateful for that, because the Department of Justice just treated me so well. And when they hired me, they were honest with me. They said, Kathy, we're not hiring you for your writing abilities. We're hiring you because you have disabilities. And the Director General worked with Terry Fox, who's a Canadian icon. He's the teenager that ran across Canada with an artificial leg, and he had to quit because of his cancer. They had lung cancer. But she knew the issues that people with disabilities faced. So I was just lucky that I met somebody that appreciated that. And yeah, it was a token appointment, and I talk about that in my book. But I believe that for certain groups, they need that little extra avenue. It's like neuroplasticity at the office. Like, no, seriously. Once I got in there and learned the routine, and then I was able to cope. Just people with disabilities sometimes take a little longer, but I think I did very well in my job.
I think you do very well overall. One of the things that I find kind of astounding, very impressive with you is the degree of self-efficacy that it seems that you had at the beginning. But even with that can-do confidence that you had, were there moments when someone's small gesture made a really lasting impression and got you through a certain day or moment?
Oh, there have been so many. I can't begin to. I have had so much support from friends, family, loved ones, and the healthcare community, who still keep me chugging along every day. I can't begin to tell you how many people have lifted me at times when I felt down. But that's the thing. You have to express yourself. If you give and you shall receive. If you keep it all bottled up, then you won't go anywhere. You have to say, I'm feeling oppressed, or this is too much of a challenge for me. What do you suggest? I think you have to be open to that all the time. I can't really think of one thing except, no, I'll just leave it at that for now. Maybe I'll think of something specific, but.
Okay. So first stroke, second stroke, your professional career, anywhere during this time, heck, even to the present, did you ever feel any kind of internal or outside pressure to, quote unquote, return to a previous version of yourself?
Constantly. I mean, your personality says, oh, I should be doing this, I should be doing that. And there's so much pressure to go here and go there. But I know if I overdo it, I'll pay. I'll get a severe migraine that'll last 2 days and I'll just be completely out of it. And that's a constant frustration about not being able to do all the things you want to do. But I think we all feel that way. But for me, it's even more intense because my brain is active, but my body doesn't want to cooperate. So I'm constantly, okay, Kathy, is this worth? And my doctor used to say, if it's worth it, Kathy, do it. Obviously, kayaking is worth it, right? I might be zonked for the next day because of the exertion, but it's a constant battle, constant. But that's where meditation and yoga are so helpful, because that grounds you, and that's good for anyone.
Oh yes, I agree. And you share again basically a lot of self-belief that I can do this. How do you balance your self-belief that you can do A, B, and C with what's within your realm of control that's realistic?
Yeah, that takes years. You have to learn to be patient. And when you have a failure, you say, okay, I've learned from it. Tomorrow I'm going to try this way. it's a series of peaks and valleys. I mean, we all fail at stuff, but you have to, it's all part of learning what your capabilities are and working within that, but always trying to do better. Like, I still feel like I haven't been a good mother to my daughter to this day, and there are certain walls there, but I do my best, and sometimes I feel down about it, but I appreciate my daughter so much because she's an amazing person, and so is my husband, and yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to, Forrest, to have you share a little bit about both of them, but what you just said in a previous conversation we had, you had shared with me about how it's important for people not to be too hard on themselves. Could you expound on that?
Yes. One of the hardest lessons I learned is that you have to love yourself. You have to nurture yourself. You have to give your body what it needs to perform the way you want it to. Like, to give yourself energy, you have to get enough sleep, eat good food, move every day. All these things are necessary to be your best person. And if you do as well as you can at those things, then you can at least say that you've done your best. And also, you have to laugh. You have to be able to laugh about yourself with others. And humor is like, when you're laughing, nothing hurts, right? And what's the other thing? Music. Music is so good for the soul. Often, like when I'm doing intuitive yoga, I'll just dance, and that just fills your whole body with joy. There's so many simple things that you can do to help that. Yeah. I don't know if I need that, but.
Oh, no, that all makes perfect sense. Could you tell everyone a little bit about where you've, at the beginning, you did something that might have seemed small, but it ended up having a big impact in other areas of your life for maybe that day or long term?
Well, I remember when I was in stroke rehab, I couldn't go home until I knew how to climb stairs. And I was terrified because every time I touched the railing, my hand would burn like crazy. And it was so painful and so difficult. But when the physiotherapist was so good for me. And when I climbed my first flight of stairs, oh my God, I knew I was coming home. And that was such a lift, because when you first have a terrible stroke, you feel like your life's over. I couldn't move my right side. So yeah, like being able to climb stairs, taking my first step in the walker was also, it hurt like hell, but when I got back in bed, I was like, hey, this is going to get better, and you build on that every day. And there's peaks and valleys. That's the thing. You're going to have great days, and I still have horrible days where, okay, you've done too much. You got to shut it down.
Well, it seems like you're very self-aware and definitely intuitive when it comes to monitoring your own self. So with your husband and your daughter, what role did they play in, I'll call it, your healing during this journey?
Well, my husband, again, he was, and he continues to be, well, now, right now I call him my free agent because he's a writer too, and he's promoting me everywhere he goes. But like even today, he does most of the cooking at home. I'll make my own breakfast, but he always handles lunch and dinner. He does all the social organization for getting our family together because recently we went down to one car, which, saving the planet and all that. But since he drives most of the time, he is the social convener, right? And he's also very protective of me, sometimes a little too protective. We often have, discussions about that. But he knows me better than I know myself. He can look at me and say, okay, Kathy, you gotta end it right here. Like, he's very good that way. My daughter, she is an absolutely amazing person. I can't tell you what she does because it's top secret. But she's a very high level executive, and I'm just so proud of her. And she's a wonderful mother. I got better for them, and like my book it's a family love story, really. It's about how the three of us. It's about she was our little angel who kept us together during that time because we were both focused on raising her as well as we could under the situation. And she says that as a young child, she knew that we were struggling with something. She wasn't quite sure what it was, but she tells me, I knew I had to be good. So you can see how our lives are so intermeshed, and I just feel like the luckiest woman alive that I have two people like that in my life that are so supportive, and I'm just very lucky. I know I have brought about my transformation, but I couldn't have done it as well as I did without having them in my life.
Well, Kathy, you've been through literal hell and back, and a theme that you just showed once again and when you've shown me since we've started talking is how important would you say this feeling of gratefulness is in your walking decades?
Life is all about gratitude when you think about it. No matter what happens in your life, there are still things you can be grateful for. And once I realized that, and I realized it very early because, as I said, I didn't lose my ability to talk, as you can see. And I'm so grateful for that. I always say I'm grateful that I can walk and talk because I know what it's like not to be able to do that. I've gone from wheelchair to climbing the Acropolis on my husband's arm and barfing in the tour bus after, but at least I did it. But that's why I'm so grateful, because I had not one extra chance at life, but two. And I'm so grateful to Briere Health. That was the center that I went to for rehabilitation in Ottawa. They gave me back a different life twice, but I'm still the same person in my heart. And gratitude, we can find gratitude in anything. When I'm having a bad day, the smell of a cedar bush brings me gratitude, that I can smell it and that I live near a tree. Like, I know it sounds petty, but I think finding joy in the simple things in life is key to happiness. Like, you've got to throw away all this material, not all the material things, but put it aside for a second and think about, are you still breathing? Can you still hear? Can you still talk? Can you still walk? Yes. So I'm grateful.
Wow.
Pretty simple when you think about it. And that kind of thinking keeps me going. So gratitude is a huge thing.
I think what you share is very inspirational, and I think people forget about those facts you just shared. The importance of appreciating the simple things. Kathy, you had mentioned meditation and yoga. Could you share with everyone what those two practices look like for you?
They're really important because you kind of go in cycles. Sometimes you're really into it, and I have certain practices that I try to do every morning before I go downstairs in my chairlift. And when I don't take that time for myself, I'm more anxious. I tire more easily. Breathing gets your whole system going. I usually do like a 12-minute meditation exercise, and I put my poor little feet on one of those warm circulatory things, like just to get all the cells going. And then for yoga, I roll back and forth on the floor like a jelly roll to wake up everything. So I have a routine, and I enjoy it because it makes me feel better. And by doing that every morning, I do other things too. But just having that practice every day, and I'll admit I don't do it every day. Like if I'm going to the pool, I know I'm going to do some yoga in the pool or in the sauna. So, but when you have that, and I only do like 10 minutes of meditation and maybe 10 minutes of yoga, but that's all you need. It's just that little bit of time for you to set yourself every day. Or in the afternoon, if sometimes, the pain does get to me. And so I have things I can do in the afternoon. Like I don't have an afternoon nap. I have an afternoon yoga rest where I'll lie on the floor supported by pillows, and I'll put calming music on, and I'll do whatever I need to do to really relax. So yeah, it's huge in my life. It's huge. And I didn't really discover that until after I retired, because let's face it, busy people who have jobs and kids and commuting, and it's tough to integrate that into your life. Now that I'm retired, it's a lot easier, but it still is something that, people can go to a class and it's good. Go out, meet people, have fun. And that's the key. Keep it fun. Like I find meditation and yoga fun. It empowers me.
Nice. I think I know so many people are, I have to go and do meditation and I have to go to yoga, and your attitude of I get to do these things is quite infectious. Kathy, I know the spiritual has been important in your life, and do you see any parallels between spiritual transformation and neurological healing?
Oh, they're definitely integrated. I'm not a religious person, but I'm a spiritual person. I believe in some higher power, even if it's just scientific. But you have to give yourself to, and this sounds silly, but to the universe, because you're not in control of everything. But you can control certain things, and that's where neuroplasticity comes in. Because if you tell yourself, okay, well, I'm not sure why I'm here, but while I'm here, I'm going to do the best I can. Or just spirituality in believing in the miracles of our earth. Like it's such a miracle that we're here. And just wanting to enjoy as much of life as I'm able to. For me, that's very spiritual. Not very complicated.
Well, no, I tend to agree with you. How would you say writing this memoir helped you um, process your experience and help in the healing even at this later date?
I'm glad you brought that up because in 1984, my psychologist on the stroke team said, "Kathy, you should write a book about this." And I was struggling with a lot of things, and it took me 40 years to write the book, and that's because I was putting all my energy into paying off the mortgage, raising my family, being as a contributory member of the family as possible. I've always loved writing, and it wasn't until the pandemic that I finally said to myself, okay, my husband's also a writer. We need another laptop or computer. If I don't do it now, I never will. I'd always wanted to write a book, but it was the pandemic that pushed me. And it started off as a catharsis. And that's my main reason that I wrote. And I think for anybody, anyone, journaling is so healing, because if you don't have anybody to talk to, you can at least get your feelings down on paper. So it started off as a catharsis. But then as I was writing it, it became a tribute to all the people in my life. And I list many, many doctors and on the front page who were particularly, a big deal. And I realized that I wanted to thank my friends, family, and loved ones, and all the healthcare professionals who, to this day, keep me going. And because I had worked in communications, I knew how I wanted to write the book. Like, I wanted to write it like a thriller, something that a story, and it was like a true love story, and it still is. And after I wrote the book, I transformed into wanting to empower others. It was kind of just an organic process. It started as a catharsis, but now look at me. I'm doing public speaking. And I'm happy because I'm helping others. And I don't care about the money. I just want to help people. It's my way of giving back.
Well, I think that's beautiful. I know there's a few things very dear to you that I want to get to before we close out, but one last question before we get to those things. What would you say, what does thriving look like today for you, for you now?
Thriving? Is that what you said? Thriving is being able to live my life in a way that is fun, and comfortable, but also stimulating. And I have no lack of stimulation in my life. I actually have a bit too much. But that to me is thriving. To be able to go for a walk, go for a swim, go shopping. Like, that's a little thing, going shopping. But for me, it's a big thing. Just being able to do the little things. And I'm at the point in my life where I'm just happy being. Like, that, for me, that's thriving. I'm very lucky that I have the choice to do what I want whenever I want. I'm very lucky.
Well, again, your feeling of gratefulness comes shining through. I do want to circle back to one thing that I know you really wanted to share with people were, some warning signs and other things that you wish women would be more aware of when it comes to
not just women, but men too. Everybody should learn how to identify a stroke when you or someone else is having one. In Canada, there's a FAST procedure. The face, is it drooping? What does A stand for? Anyways, I'm not the medical expert, but you should familiarize yourself with symptoms of stroke. And the key is, even if you have any doubts, don't wait. Don't go to bed the next morning because you may not wake up. Call 911 right away, because as soon as paramedics figure out what's going on, they can give you medicine right away that can completely reverse any disability sometimes, if it's quick and it's the right environment. So that's the first thing. But also for women, it just very recently, research has proven that women have increased risk of stroke and unique stroke risks that throughout their lives that have to do with things like pregnancy, menopause, and that sort of thing. And they're often misdiagnosed more because no research was done exclusively on women until 2023. And you might want to catch a reel by Sharon Stone, where she, the actress in Fatal Attraction, where she talks about that very briefly, but you can see her anger. Anyway, so I want to empower women to learn more about this, because in Canada, 89% of us do not know about our increased and unique risks for stroke. So that is kind of something that I'm really focused on right now, and I want to get my book into as many libraries as possible so that people, once they are discharged from hospital, if they don't have the right resources in their community to continue their rehabilitation, my book will give them some practical advice, not medical advice, but practical advice about how they can heal themselves at home, in their communities once they're home. So that's kind of my mission right now.
Well, I wish you incredible success with that mission, because I think it's going to help so many people. In 2015, my dear friend passed away from the results of a stroke, and I know his wife would have loved to have had a book like yours at that time. Kathy, what advice would you offer to someone newly navigating disability or illness?
My advice would be, first of all, to ask as many questions as you can to your doctors. Do your own research about your condition, find out exactly what your diagnosis is, and if there's any doubt about that diagnosis, keep digging. Research good institutions like the Mayo Clinic. Don't get things off of Reddit about eating 10 bananas a day. Like, consult medically respected sources so you can learn as much as you can about your condition. And the thing is with stroke is that every stroke is different, because everybody's brain is different, everybody's personality is different. So we experience different things, like depression, anger. Anyway, that's the key. Do your research, find out as much as you can about your condition, and be your own best advocate. Call medical professionals. If you don't hear from them, keep calling them. Eventually they'll fit you in because they're sick and tired of what I'm saying though is that you have to be kindly proactive, and you do have to push, because, well, at least in Canada, our medical system is under a great deal of stress right now. So that would be my advice. And also, try and have fun. Do something that makes you happy. If it's knitting, if it's just being outside, find something that gives you pleasure.
Nice, nice. And you've talked about this previously. You just touched upon it, but how do you think society can better support those who are differently identified?
It's a tough challenge. I know our cities are doing the whole question of accessibility is good for everyone. Like, if a sidewalk has lowered curbs for wheelchairs to go, that's fantastic. In the workplace, you can have ergonomic assessments if to make sure that you're seated properly in your chair. There's all kinds of things like that that can be, really beneficial. But it's always a trade-off between, especially for business, between profitability and doing too much. Like, there's a big swing, and some kinds of environment can do a better job than others. But that's why a person with disabilities has to know a lot about themselves, because when they go out into the community, they have to know where they're going to be able to get. And that's a big issue. I don't think it'll ever be perfect. I know that there's a professor at the University of Texas. Her name is, anyway, she's written a book and a workbook called Disability is Human. I know her because she published with the same group that published me, the self-publishing agency in Vancouver. And her thing has gotten rave reviews about how to include, how to include all diversity in the community, in the workplace, and at home. So that's another really, really good source. I think her name is Stephanie Hawthorne, but I could be wrong. I'm not very good with names, but accessibility is a huge thing, and often it has to be tailored to the individual, and that's why the individual has to be, number one, know what their issues are, and number two, express them to whoever they're dealing with so that they know. And that's even an issue with caregivers and disabled people. It's hard when a disabled person is not able to make their needs known. And the caregiver, who's often a family member, can get very drained and hopeless if they don't have respite, if they don't get a break from caring for their individuals. So that is kind of a really big problem. So we need more services to give caregivers respite. There are a lot of seniors' homes have temporary places where an individual can go for a few days while their caregiver is on holiday or something like that. So that's something to check out too.
Okay. Would you add on to this or correct this that some takeaways from your book is inspiration, hope, and the all-important know-how and a bit of a map that people can choose to take from how they will?
Yes, and that's where the spirituality of it comes in too, is that several times in my life I had been at the point of giving up, but then a medical innovation came out of nowhere that really helped me. And that's why I tell people never give up, because what you thought was impossible might be possible 5 years from now if you leave yourself open to it. And that's why my mantra, never say never, is so important, because if you give up, then you can't benefit from any innovation. And that's what my whole book is about, becoming comfortable And just by the way, my brother, who passed away, well, actually, it's his birthday today, my late brother. He passed away and was buried in a Pink Floyd t-shirt,
Ah,
which is kind of related to my becoming comfortably numb. And I'm comfortably numb too because of my, so that's the title's a tribute to him and me.
oh, nice. When I read the title of your book, I instantly thought of Pink Floyd, and they happen to be my favorite band of all time.
Really?
So, but I guess I'll close with two things. One, I hope you would return and share some more with everyone someday in the near future. And thank you for sharing your story with such grace and authenticity. And I think it will be helpful to people. I think your journey reminds us that healing is about becoming. And we want your words to ripple forth and offer comfort and courage and clarity to everyone who could use it. And what we'll do, everyone, is below this, you will see the link to Kathy's very helpful website and how to order the book if you wish to. So,
That's what it looks like. And it's available at Barnes and Noble. You can order it from there or Amazon. And there are other ways to do it on my website as well. So, and thank you for having me. This is actually my first single interview. I've participated on podcasts in panels, but this is my first interview. So I'm very honored, Rich, that you found my story interesting enough to cover. And thank you for inviting me.
well, yes, thank you too. And you're quite the natural. So, everyone, until next time, take care and thank you, Kathy.